Welcome back to standard deviation. Okay, so we just talked about the formula. We just talked about how you add up the x values minus the average. You square them, you add those up, you divide by the total number minus 1, and then you take the square root. That's our standard deviation. I'm going to now show you how to do that in Excel, in this case Google Sheets. Okay, so I do these from inside out, right, because we're following PEMDAS. And the first thing we do in PEMDAS is parentheses. So we're going to do this stuff inside here first. So we want the individuals minus the average. And I had found the average before, but I somehow erased it. Okay, so I'm going to take the average of all my values. I'm going pretty fast so that Screencastify doesn't cut me off. Mostly because I'm too cheap to upgrade so that I could get longer than 5 minutes. Okay, that's neither here nor there. Okay, so I want to take my individuals and I want to subtract the average. So I'm going to go equals this one minus this one. Now, when I click and drag this all the way down, it's going to copy the formula, but I always want it to refer back to this one. So I have to put my dollar signs. You'll recall from many moons ago. Okay, so 22 minus 28 is going to give me a negative number, and that's fine. So now I can click and drag. I'm going through this really quickly because I'm assuming you already know how to use Excel. The next thing I want to do, we're moving out, right? So we did this inner part. Now we have to square it. So we take this and we go equals this one, raised to the power, which is shift and 6. Ta-da. Then I'm going to drag it, go to the right, bottom right corner till it turns into a plus sign, drag it all the way down. Ta-da. Okay. So notice these are now positive. That's the whole point of squaring it. The next thing in our formula that we need to do is we need to add those up, right? Because we have our sum. Now notice that you have a fraction, but the deal with fractions is that if something's on the bottom or the top of a fraction, being on the top of a fraction or a bottom of a fraction, even though this doesn't have parentheses, being in the top or bottom is like an automatic grouping symbol or an automatic parentheses. So you have to do all of this before you can divide by anything. Also, you can't take this and divide by n and then subtract 1, right? That's not going to work. Anything that's on the bottom is automatically grouped. So it has to be used as a thing, as an n minus 1, not just an n or a minus 1. Okay, so we need to add them up. That's the point of all of that. So I go equal sum. And I am going to add those up. Thank you, Google. There we go. Okay, so I have that here. Now I don't want to have to keep referring back. So what I did is I went up here and I put equals and I referred to that so that it would automatically update. Also, I need to know how many there are and I don't want to have to count myself. So I'm going to equals count, open parentheses. I'm going to highlight all of my data points, close parentheses. There are 25. Okay, moving right along. The next thing we have to do is I want to take whatever I got up at the top, which is this total, and I'm going to divide it by n minus 1. Now, this is where you have to be careful because if we just go equals this divided by this minus 1, what it's going to do is Excel is going to divide these first, and then it's going to subtract 1. But that's not what we want. We want the bottom to be n minus 1, right? So you have to put it in parentheses because it follows PEMDAS. So this minus 1, da-da-da. Notice that's different. Before it was like a 6 something, now it's 8.06. Okay, that's my standard deviation. Oh, no, it's not. We're almost to my standard deviation. So to get to my standard deviation, I have to take the square root still. So I'm going to go equals square root, which is SQRT, open parentheses. I'm going to click on that, close parentheses. There we go. That's my standard deviation. That makes more sense, right? So what this says is the average distance away from the mean of all of these points, the average distance is 2.84. So that's helpful to know. It tells you how close together all your numbers are. This is, most people, like in statistics, you hear this all the time. Well, what's the standard deviation? Because I want to know if things are way, way spread out or if they're pretty concentrated. So in this case, it's like 2.8 ounces away from the average, or away from the mean on average, right? A lot of averages in this. Anyway, that's our standard deviation.